go over that.
Hey guys, I'm Paul Grinups. I'm going to take you through my journey from being a student to now a teacher. And I realized before I came up here, this would be my last presentation of my college career, so I'm pretty excited about that. Now, I found this quote: "A teacher affects eternity. You can never tell where his influence stops." Basically, this is the reason why I wanted to become a teacher. I wanted to influence kids and have an impact on them. I didn't want to be stuck in a cubicle, typing in numbers, really having no effect on society. You know, teacher is a really important role in the community and society, and I believe if you can change one person's life, that means you're paying back society. But I'm going to give you a little background about myself. I was born in Philadelphia, moved to Centerville, Virginia, which is about 20 minutes outside D.C. And my parents took advantage of taking me and my brother to all the museums, all the monuments. I think that's when I really became interested in history and politics. There's numerous pictures of me by the Washington Monument, by the Lincoln Monument, so that's my love of history started. I lived in Centerville most of my life, but when I was 9 years old, I moved to Cape Town, South Africa, which was an amazing experience because it got me to look at a different culture. And by doing that, you know, different perspectives, and it was amazing. I mean, it's one of the most beautiful places in the whole world. But also, I got to enroll in private school. I was a public school boy in America. In South Africa, it sounds terrible, but if you're a white person, you do not go to public school because you're not good. So it really made me realize how awesome America was because the public schools there were amazing. The private school really taught me, you know, how to dress up nice, how to respect your elders. Brought that back to America. Actually moved back to this same old house and graduated from high school, Westfield High School. And I played sports, was a wrestler, played football. And in high school, that's when I really realized I wanted to become a teacher. My 11th grade teacher taught me U.S. history, and he had a huge impact on me. Influenced me. I loved him in class, and I just realized how happy he was. Every single day when he was teaching, he enjoyed it. And I knew I wanted to do that. Also, my wrestling coach had a huge impact on me. He could be a dick at times, but he really pushed me and motivated me, and he did instill values in me that I still have today. And he pushed me, and I became a state champion because of him. And then I got to wrestle at Virginia Tech because of him. So it was a great, great, great experience. And this is me graduating. I came to Virginia Tech. I wrestled my freshman year. I loved it, but it was after 1 year I realized it was time for me to hang up my shoes and focus on school and focus on college life. And I worked my butt off. I mean, I graduated cum laude, which was a huge deal for me. I had a better GPA in college than I did high school, so I was real proud of that. And I always knew I wanted to be in the social studies grad program. I think I emailed Dr. Hicks every month since my sophomore year to make sure I was taking the right classes, doing the right thing. So it was really important for me. So I graduated last May, and then I started my graduate classes last summer. Now also I coach and I substitute taught, and both those professions really got me ready to become a teacher and what it was going to be like. Subbing is a great profession. I really enjoyed it because it got me to stand in front of a classroom and instruct and teach and get used to interacting with kids. So I knew that I wanted to become a teacher when I was subbing. And I love coaching. I coach at Christiansburg High School. They have a great wrestling program. They won states 11 times straight, and we were ranked 9th in the nation at one point this year. So I was really happy. But besides all the success, it got me to interact with kids and realize what it's like to be a part of a community. I mean, every single day, I had to talk to parents, talk to fellow teachers, talk to community officials, and I had to be positive. And you know, I realized that you can really be a big force in a coaching or teacher role. So that's what I learned from these two professions. Now in the fall, I got to student intern at a high school. I got to teach 9th grade world history and geography. And it was an amazing experience. I always thought that I wanted to do high school, just with the coaching aspect. I wanted to coach and teach at the same place. So I was real excited and real pumped. My co-op teacher was the baseball coach, so we got along really well. He was just a really good mentor. I got to teach in front of class, which I didn't know what the expectations were going to be, but he let me teach almost every single day, and he mirror taught. So basically, he would teach first period, and then I would teach the rest of the day. So I got to, you know, instruct, explain, and manage and monitor discussions. So I was really, really excited. My teacher really impacted me two ways, in many ways, but I want to just address two. The first way is you've got to have passion for what you teach. One day when I was teaching, I had to talk about Canadian geography. I don't really know a lot about Canadian geography, and I really wasn't interested in Canadian geography, but that was probably the worst day that I ever taught. Not because of the subject, but because of the kids' reactions. They were terrible that day. And when I reflected, I realized that it was because the vibes I was sending out were negative, and they could see it. So that's why they acted bad. So I realized that even if you don't like the topic, you got to put on that fake smile and just go with it. Second thing I learned is that teachers have many different hats. My teacher was, obviously a history teacher, and he did a great job with that. He was a coach, so baseball players would come in and talk to him. He was also a mentor. Past students would come in and talk to him about what colleges they wanted to go to, what classes should they take junior year, senior year. And also, he was a positive role model for them. Whenever they needed something, like just a vent, just to talk about problems, he was there just to listen. So I realized that teachers have different hats. Now, in the springtime, I taught 7th grade U.S. history. I love U.S. history, it's my favorite subject, but I was a little nervous about going to the middle school. Felt they were a little too young for me. And same thing, I heard some terrible stories, how they act, but I actually loved it. I really loved it, and my teacher was amazing. He gave me great feedback. He let me teach, let me do my own thing. He was really picky though, but I really liked that because every day I could improve and every day I could grow. And it was a great experience. I got to teach about the Cold War and the Civil Rights. And I did a lot of different activities, a lot of different lessons, and I engaged my students in many ways. I really enjoyed it. So both those experiences really made me a better teacher and a better person, and they were both positive experiences. In the spring, we had to do writing prompts. It was a graduate school requirement, but also it was a great way to show how my students grew when I was teaching. The first two that you see, one's dealing with the Red Scare, the other's dealing with the Korean War. I did 3 of them, and the last one you can see in the next slide was about the fall of the Berlin Wall. What I wanted my students to do was pretend that they were in a certain time period. And the first one is about the Red Scare and the Hollywood 10. I wanted them to pretend that they were a part of the Hollywood 10 and during the Red Scare era. Before I handed out this assignment, we talked about the Red Scare and we had a lecture about it. In this assignment, I wanted them to define the Red Scare and the Hollywood 10 and then explain what it was like. I have some pictures for them to kind of get their brains going, and also I have the instructions right here. Overall, they did a great job doing the assignment, but I was trying to brainstorm better ways for me to instruct them because I wanted different results, more like precise results. So if you look at this one about the Korean War, you see a letter. It's called the banner letter, or the banning letter. It's basically about an angry dad who wrote to Harry S. Truman saying, "I'm really angry that my son died for a meaningless war." And you can hang up this letter so you can see it every day. So in this assignment, my students had to explain why the Korean War was fought, would they fight it again, and what was the result of it. So they had to explain what they learned in class and kind of critically think about it and explain why to justify this war to an angry dad. Now if you look at the structure of this, I have a picture, I have the directions, but they're in bullet form. I found that bullet form is pretty good because it's real direct. I mean, if you can check off every single one, you know you did the assignment the right way. So I found this was a better way to instruct the students. And my last one that I did was the fall of the Berlin Wall. Again, you see the picture, the directions in bullet. On the back, I gave a sample. I wrote the assignment for them. This is a good way to model what I wanted them to do. But also, I had a chronic homework problem. I had a lot of kids that just refused to do homework. So my thought process was, if I did it and showed them that I did it, then there's no reason that they shouldn't do it. And the homework did go up a little bit, so it was successful. But overall, my students grew. I had 2 students that I looked at, and I identified one problem each, and at the end they fixed it. So it was a really good experience. And the last way that I showed student growth was with technology. We had to do an action research project, and I chose a smartboard. And the question I asked, or try to find out, is could I use smartboard to interact with the whole class? Everyone knows that Terry can come up and touch it, move it around, learn that way, but what happens to the rest of the class? Are they still learning? So I tried to find different activities, different templates, different ways to interact with the whole class. Basically, I did find out that you can use it to interact with the whole class, you just got to be creative and use different activities. And the students really liked it because it was something new, because my teacher usually just used PowerPoint for the majority of stuff. So to change it up, different format, kids really like this. Also, I used the Smartboard as a quick quiz, and they really enjoyed that. The quick quizz's grades went up a little bit, so that also how they grew as well. Now, my growth as a teacher, without a doubt, I grew in many ways. In my competence, me being in front of the classroom lecturing, breaking down information, I grew in many ways. Also, lesson planning. My lesson plans were not good at all in the beginning of the fall. Now I can write lesson plans with confidence. I grew with technology. I didn't know how to use a Smartboard when I started teaching. My era wasn't the Smartboard era. So just to play around with it, having that experience really helped me out a lot as well. Also reflection, we have a WordPress blog that we have to do daily or weekly, and I never thought I was going to do a blog in my life. I didn't know what a blog was. But it was a great way to reflect and see how I can better myself as a teacher. Also, at the end of my experience at my middle school, I had my students grade my performance, and I got to look and try to find overall themes that I can improve on, which is a really big success. When I teach, I like to use visual discovery, and it's basically me putting up a cartoon or a picture and have students break down the information. This is a good way for them to critically think. I use it as Just Do It, which is how you open a lesson, and this is addressing the Cuban Missile Crisis, and students would have to break down the information, find out what I'm trying to ask them. So I would ask the question, can you describe this cartoon, explain this cartoon? And then they would use their brains and break it down, and they would have a good discussion about it afterwards. I use this one as a Just Do It too. And it was before the lesson I talked about the first African American do something, the first African American woman do something, and the first woman to do something. So breaking down racial and gender barriers. Now I asked, what do all these people have in common? And the answer is they were the first of something. Sally Ride, which a lot of people didn't know, but they could critically think why, you don't really see a lot of women astronauts. But they realized she was the first astronaut. Woman astronaut for the USA. Tiger Woods, the first African American to win a Masters. And then Princess Tiana, which a lot of the boys got too. She was the first African American princess. So it was a good way for them to use their brains. My favorite lesson that I taught was the Cuban Missile Crisis. And I started with the history mystery. It's kind of like a skim C. The students got evidence, such as these pictures, and had to break them down and solve the mystery. And the mystery was the Cuban Missile Crisis. So they used all this evidence, and then they had to say, when do you think this happened, where, who, what, and why is it important? And you had to use every piece of evidence. So this is a good way for them to use their brains, critically think, and solve a problem. And overall, this has been such a great experience. I never worked harder in my life for this past year, and I really enjoyed it. And I'm really looking forward to the next step. So thank you for listening.
INTAS standards. So, talk me through, and provide me with some evidence of one that you've kind of weaved together very well, and then just discuss one that you have to draw on, kind of thing, please.
Principal 6, I think, did a really good job because I use a lot of different ways to assess my students, informally and formally. A way that I would informally assess my students would be with exit slips. So when I was talking about the Cold War, we watched The Butter Battle, which is a great movie. And then at the end, I would ask this question: how is the Butter Battle and the Cold War similar? They would all write it down, I would collect it, and then I would look over and make sure they understood the main points of it. It's a good way to informally assess students. And formally, my teacher has quick quizzes that I use as well too. And Joe touched on it yesterday, but it's basically just 6 easy questions that takes maybe 5 to 7 minutes. It's a quick way to assess your students to make sure that they are still on par as you feel get ready for a major assessment such as the unit test. In both ways, they're great ways to assess your students. And one I got to work on is Principal 2. Both schools that I taught at, or a student intern or student taught at, it was majority white. It's probably like 98% white. I did have a different socio-economic factor with my middle school, and I did have to adjust it a little bit, such as homework. But in terms of different cultures, I mean, where I'm from back home in Northern Virginia, I mean, it's not, I mean, you have a lot of different cultures, a lot of different nationalities, so that's what I'm used to. So when I go to school down here, it's not the same. Also with special ed, or learning disabled, I had a few, but not that many. So that's another area that I gotta work at.
You've linked to Khan Academy. How are you going to use that with your students?
I did not look at Khan
Am I looking at the wrong person?
Academy.
Are you Paul?
Yeah.
Yeah, you did. It's on your links, it's on your external links.
I did. Oh, excellent. Oh, okay, my fault. Basically, with Khan Academy, it's just a good. I'm sorry, I think that like
I
all
really
my.
didn't mean to trick you.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
did.
you tricked me good. With Khan Academy, it's just another way to lecture, to express information. I mean, some days, if I keep lecturing, the students get kind of bored off it. So I think this is a good way to just kind of change the pace a little bit.
Did you ever use it, or do you just with your students, or did you use it for your own learning?
My co-op teacher in the fall used it briefly,
Mm-hmm.
but that's about it. I never personally used it, but I know it's such a great tool. Mike used it, I think, a lot this semester, so, you know, this is a great tool, and I plan on using it.